So I know I have covered kind of a little bit about like what's going on with this whole thing, but I really wanted to give somebody, you know, who needs it, my like full backstory and like sort of how things happened and like what ups and downs that I've had throughout all of the different processes, from when I was young to sort of now. And so let's talk a little bit. So I was diagnosed with congenital adrenal hyperplasia when I was 4, at least around there. So what does that mean? It means that my adrenals didn't work quite right. I mean, I was very blessed to have a very mild case. There's kind of a wide range of things that fall under congenital adrenal hyperplasia, including like salt wasting. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, if you want to know more about what it is, like, feel free to look it up. There's plenty of different information, but in my particular case, um, yeah, my adrenals just didn't work quite right. It's like they did produce like some level of cortisol, which is like the fight or flight hormone, right? And we need that to survive, basically. Um, and so mine did produce a certain level of it, but not really um, quite enough to sustain me. Because yeah, like it would be very bad if I did not take my medicine growing up. Um, so yeah, I definitely took corticosteroids for that for a very, very long time. Obviously I was kind of sickly kid and lots of, various like infections, and so therefore, had a lot of different antibiotics a lot of the time. And I really wish we knew about, what we knew about gut health back then that we do now. We're very blessed to have, I think, a huge, advance in the understanding of the body. Even in like the last 20 years, it's pretty incredible. So that's kind of how things went up until I kind of started biohacking a little bit, because honestly, like, as a kid, like, and even now though, like, I'm still like constantly on pills, so I don't know like why I was really worrying about things. Joe, stop it. Stop. This cat. Come on, get down. Get down. There you go. Okay. What was I saying? But yeah, I mean, constantly being on pills, I got it in my mind. I'm like, I don't really want to be on these anymore. And especially, there was a point actually where my pediatric endocrinologist, we don't know for sure, so don't really like quote me, but we think what happened is like the medicine wasn't quite right, and it gave me like kind of low-key like Cushing's, which is like where you get like I had like a fat deposit like on the back of my neck sort of, and I had like these purple stretch marks, and I still kind of do because they never really went away. So that's definitely caused by Cushing's. But so anyway, the moral of that story is advocate for yourself, and if you're dealing with a pediatric, like advocate for your kids, you know um because yeah, I mean, we had this endocrinologist, which granted, I can't be too mad. The guy saved my life to a degree, but the way that experience went definitely left my self-esteem in like tatters, um because we'd go in, and obviously corticosteroids, they kind of pack on the weight, and which is not really that great. And so, like, as a kid, like, my mom made me really like healthy food. Like, she was so conscious about um putting in all the vegetables, and making sure like everything was balanced and like all of that. And obviously, like, as a kid, like, I wasn't the most active kid in the whole world, because obviously I didn't feel good. Like, I would whine like on bike rides. My mom and I kind of would laugh about it now, I guess. But I mean, ultimately, yeah, like we had this conversation of like, yeah, I mean, you really didn't feel good. Like, so it's not like it was like entirely invalid. Um, but anyway, so yeah, like with all that being said, like he would sort of, they just sort of looked at like this BMI like line graph when I was growing up, and they kind of used those like targets like to make sure I was healthy. Which obviously like I never really fell on like the line, either over or like severely under, because like I had like 1 month, for example, I had pneumonia for a whole entire month one time when I was like in first grade, which is crazy. So it was, like this kind of like peaks and valleys sort of thing. Like I'd get really sick, I'd lose a bunch of weight, and then he'd say I was doing good, and then I would kind of get better and go above the line, and he'd be like, you're not doing enough, you're not eating right enough, you're not exercising enough. And it tore apart my self-esteem, because he was basically like, as long as like your stomach is in line with the rest of your body, basically that's how you know you're healthy. And I'm like, especially now, like as an adult, I'm like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever freaking heard in my life. So yeah, definitely vet your doctors. Research everything yourself, take kind of what they say with a grain of salt. Find somebody who you really trust and stick with them, because definitely when I grew up, and I was in college, we had an actual endocrinologist who really showed me, um, listened to me and like how I felt about my body, and like, we really took that into consideration versus, oh, like, this is what you weigh and this is what you, whatever. And oh, your hormones are kind of wonky, and like that's how I figured out I also have hypothyroidism. So, yeah, like lots of continual blood testing in college, actually, though. Because, like I've said in my other videos, I am very type A. I have, let me put this in perspective. I graduated high school in 3 years. I graduated college in 3 years. Because I think I had like this warped perception of time too. Because you kind of hear, oh, you have this disorder, and I think my brain put together, oh, I have this. I'm sick, so I'm not gonna live as long as other people do, you know. And I think my brain kind of like put two and two together. And so I think, I always tried to do really well in school. I always tried to, create a legacy. And so when I got older ish, somehow that translated into become a workaholic and get through school like crazy, so that you can, do all the things you want to after school. So, yeah, but during college, like I was taking like 18-hour semesters, which was insane. Looking back, I'm like, why did I do that? That was crazy. Especially like, I remember looking at my diploma. Um, I was like, I worked my ass off for this piece of paper. Like, and it just like, it's kind of like life as I knew it, sort of after that day, just like stopped. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I mean, I guess when you finish something, it's like finishing a good book too. It's kind of like this world like ends, and then like you pick up something else, right? So I guess kind of same thing. Um, but anyway, during all of that, I ended up going up to the Mayo Clinic, because they thought that I totally hit full on like adrenal burnout. And I remember just like going through, like I created like this full on like binder of all my past like medical records. Like I tabbed them all, like I highlighted certain things that I thought were interesting, in my medical history. And I just like, and I was there, I was like, we need to get answers. And they're like, nope, it's actually not an adrenal thing. And which begged the question. I never actually got in to see a rheumatologist. There we go. Because they're like, you could have like um, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, etc. Like, so we never really actually got that far. Which, I mean, but fibromyalgia, it's kind of like, well, still haven't found any research about how to actually manage chronic pain in a good way. For me, it's always been like hot baths and just, do my best to keep all of the inflammation markers down. So, but yeah, that's kind of that. And then around age 21, around there, I mean, there's, some research. We don't really know exactly what happened. We just kind of, I remember going, um, oh yeah, because I was going to tell you, when I was like 15, I started kind of like experimenting with my, sort of new endocrinologist. I was like, I want to get off the meds. Like, I don't want to take this anymore. I'm done. Blah, blah. And then so like we kind of did that, and I lasted about a month, I want to say, before like I crashed. Like I just like full on, like the first stressful event happened, like major stressful event for me, happened, and like the next day I was like asleep. Like I basically slept, and thankfully it was over the summer. So I didn't actually have school, but like I slept and then pretty much like only wake up to like eat, go to the bathroom, like things like that. But I remember sleeping a lot. So that was kind of like that. What was it, 17? It was one of those. But like, so there were like, two events sort of like that where it's like, oh, like we tried, taking me off the meds. And then finally I got to this place where I was like, okay, I'm like 21, 22. I'm like, okay, can we try like one more time, please? Can we try? And we took me off the meds, and I actually, like, I did really well that time around. And he did my lab work. He's like, you're actually within normal range. I don't get it. And so we just started to do research around it. Whenever he was like, hey, like, yeah, sometimes there have been some cases anyway of like women sort of like in their 20s growing out of this. So it was really interesting. And so haven't actually had any like endocrinologist follow-ups in quite some time, even though I technically still have, like hypothyroidism and stuff, but that's kind of been more managed by like, primary care doctors. So that's kind of that. But yeah, just kind of wanted to throw all of that out there and just be like, you get to be your own advocate, and you get to do your own research, and don't let any one person say, oh, it's going to be like this, because, if my mom and I had done that from the get-go, I would have been like only like 4 foot and, hairy and super overweight, and, not have a good quality of life. If we just sort of like let certain doctors say that. So yeah, that's kind of that, and hope that serves you in some capacity, but I just wanted to put that out there for somebody who might need it. So until next time, bye.